Hello, everyone. Dr. Dan Miller. We are on the 250 River with Dr. Dan. This is episode 62. I think I've got my numbers right finally. It's good to see you. We're indoors. I'd like to be outdoors, but at the risk of being blown flat, I don't think I better do that. So we're going to stay here today on a Friday afternoon. Hope you've had a good week, and let's get started on the 250 River with Dr. Dan. Our theme today is Your Leadership in 4 Books from 250 years ago, with the week ending March 12th. I really encourage you to go over to my website, historicalsolutions.com. Take a look at the latest full entry. In fact, I'd really like you to do that, because at the end of that entry for March 12th, 1776 in Americanism Redux, you're going to see kind of a surprise as to how I've come about some of what we're going to talk about here today for just a few minutes. I don't want to spoil anything, but it involves one heck of a beautiful photograph and one heck of a surprising discovery about a political cartoon. So take a look at that and get all the way to the end of that entry. I think you'll find it worthwhile. So, 4 books. Gosh, 250 years ago this week, we're still talking about that week, even now, even certainly well beyond me, you and me here today. There are a lot of people who talk about what happened this week, 250 years ago, and it involves 2 books that were published in the same doggone week, and it's amazing that that's so. But we're going to talk about those 2 books and 2 other small booklets as a kind of a quartet that I think represent some importance, certainly for 250 years, but also specifically for your leadership in a couple of unique ways. So let's dive in real quick. Yeah, I'm going to take a break here in a minute and sip a beverage here behind me, along with there's my buddy GW, courtesy of a good friend of mine, Brad. So always thanks to Brad for my the bust of GW that's in my personal library. All right, here we go. So 4 authors, writers: Thomas Paine, John Adams, Adam Smith, and Edward Gibbon. Thomas Paine has written a booklet, Common Sense. It's been out for a couple of months at this point, and it's like an atomic bomb has gone off. He's got one idea, other things, but one primary idea, and it's very simple. The king sucks, and we need to get rid of him. He dresses it up in some fancier tones and words. He makes it a more eloquent case than me by linking it back to various biblical and ancient writings and so forth. But if you boil it all down, strip it all away, it's the king sucks and we need to get rid of him, and that means we need to declare independence. And why haven't we declared independence? That book has had a bigger impact in 8 to 10 weeks than any other book outside of, I would say, the Bible in a similar time frame in a geographic area. It's been absolutely amazing to watch that. If you've read Redux lately, you've seen some interesting references to the impact of that book. But that's book number 1. He takes a big idea, brings it into a practical usage, as a suggested, a recommended practical usage, and everybody's thinking, hell's yes. Number 1. Number 2 is John Adams, another booklet, or an essay, but we'll stretch the term and call it a booklet. John Adams is sitting in Continental Congress 250 years ago right now, and in his off time, he's working on this thing that'll ultimately be called the Thoughts on Government. It'll be out in a couple of weeks, released in a couple of weeks. It's a set of recommendations, instructions, guidelines for the kind of government that he thinks will work best, that doesn't have a monarch or some kind of ruling class, that takes the blast area of Paine's idea, which he's supportive of, get rid of the king, But he realizes we got to have something to replace that. So Thoughts on Government is his sketch of what can replace that, how we can put things together now that the field's been blasted clear of kings and queens and monarchs of all shapes and sizes. So he takes the effect of that idea and begins to attach some nuts and bolts to it. Okay? Number 3, on the other side of the Atlantic, Adam Smith, Inquiry into the Wealth of Nations, Inquiry into the Causes of the Wealth of Nations. It's a massive piece of work. By God, you could stuff and cram 20 versions of Common Sense, Paine's Common Sense, and Adams's Thoughts on Government from a page number standpoint, and get to the total of what Adam Smith's been working on for the last 12 years. What Smith does, and there's people's careers go on explaining Adam Smith, so I'm not trying to supersede that. But basically, what Smith does is he takes details. He observes details of what's already kind of going on in terms of the economic and commercial and trade and just the monetary side of life. And how do people really function? And more than that, how do they function well? When it all is working well, what is true? So he takes all of these details and weaves together a picture of what he sees as true. And it's about people's creativity and their skill and what they bring to the table and the trust that they have, the person they're trading with or buying from or selling to, and back and forth and on and on. It's about the people. And who they are and what they're able to become that basically constitutes the wealth of something called a nation. So he takes what kind of already is and puts it into that people haven't paid attention to or they've purposely ignored, and he puts it into this kind of new look. So it's a bit beyond Paine, certainly. It's a bit beyond Adams. It's this assembling of how things are, the best way things are, and suggesting, all right, here's something we really ought to try to emphasize. It's all about people, and it's not about resources, really. So that's number 3. Number 4, finally, Edward Gibbon. Gibbon's like Adam Smith. He's a scholar. He loves to write. He loves to think. He loves to research. He loves to analyze and make drafts and edit drafts and produce final drafts and all of that kind of thing. And he's got another tome that's as big as your head in terms of the size of the book. It's only volume 1, God help us. It's only volume 1 of The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. His idea in this, again, people's careers are based on this, but I'm boiling it down to 45 seconds. His idea primarily is that there's a definitive explanation to why an empire like the Roman one fell apart. And the definitive explanation basically revolves around people kind of losing their way. The empire becomes too big. Individual people become too powerful and tyrannical and lacking in virtue and a variety of other kinds of things. But it's an internal decay, and it gets to a point where the whole thing just implodes, collapses, and ultimately dries up and goes away. And it's interesting that for him, remember we said Smith takes 12 years. I think Gibbon takes 10. And it's based on his observation as a tourist, frankly, of those very withered up, dried up, and fallen over kinds of relics in Rome. And he's seeing that 10 years earlier, seeing that triggers the thought in his mind, and he starts writing and researching, and finally, 250 years ago today, on the same week in the British Isles, on the same week that Adam Smith releases his book, Edward Gibbon releases volume 1 of his. That's remarkable. So you've got, on 2 different sides of the Atlantic, 4 amazing works that burn like stars in the night. I want you to go look at that photo I put up. Little hint there. Now, what's it mean for your leadership? I'm going to suggest two things. Now I know this isn't like last week, is it? We're talking about two guys in two chairs, and they're both in the same room. And John Hancock, the president, the president, as I called him, of Continental Congress, Josiah Bartlett, one of the delegates of the Continental Congress. That's very specific, very concrete. This is a little more abstract, so you got to give me a little leeway on this. But I still think it's of great use to you. So there's two things I want you to take away from this. Number one, ideas are just dreadfully important to your leadership. You know, they're kind of like the air. You really forget about them. You know, I'm sitting here now. What am I thinking about? I'm thinking about talking with you. I'm thinking about taking a sip of this stuff, and I'll do that right now. I'm not thinking about the air. Now, the only way I'll think about the air is a secondary effect. If it gets hot or cold, or if it's smoky, or if there's a breeze coming through. Like I said earlier, I'm outside. I practically got laid low by the powerful winds that are going on. You pay attention to air when it's a secondary effect that the air is carrying, reminding you that it's there. I know that sounds weird, but I think it's the truth. But the air is just something you accept. You don't even think about it. Ideas act much the same way. They're so prevalent, so all around you, encompassing, you don't even think about it. What I'd like for you to do is to think about it. Take a little time and step back a bit and think about what are 3 or 4 ideas that are your oxygen, your CO2. What are you just breathing in now? Man, I paid attention to it. Now I'm thinking, okay, 2 or 3 or 4 ideas that are just basic to who I am. I think that's a very valuable exercise. We just saw 4 people writing out ideas 250 years ago today. As I said, Paine's already done his. Adams is in the process of doing his. And finally, after 12 and 10 years respectively, Adam Smith and Edward Gibbon have produced theirs too, 250 years ago in the same week. So step back and what are the 2 or 3 or 4 ideas that I just think are in my lungs all the time? So that's one thing. The second thing I'd like for you to think about is this. 3 levels. The ideas, I think, exist in these 3 levels. This might give you one way to start thinking about defining that small handful of ideas that are critical to you. You got a low level, which I'm going to call your surroundings. We talked last week about surroundings, the 2 chairs in the room at Independence Hall. Your surroundings, it's front, back, it's side, those are your surroundings. What's an idea in your surroundings? Thomas Paine is an idea that's in the surroundings of John Adams. That's triggered Adams, meaning motivated Adams, to write his booklet called Thoughts on Government. So the surroundings are an important level of it. Second, go up, take a step up, and look further out. And that's your environment. That's the environment of an idea or ideas. It's above the surroundings. You can see farther out. You can see further on. And what's an idea that exists at that level? Third and finally is atmospheric, the atmosphere. It's up and away. All it is up. All it is out there. But that doesn't make it any less relevant. That doesn't make it any less pervasive. That doesn't make it any less powerful and vital to be in your lungs. The atmosphere of ideas, too. That's what we're still seeing with some of these 4 writers now, 250 years later. Their ideas got into the atmosphere. And that's where they've stayed. So, again, 2 things. Couple, 3, 4 ideas that are important to you, that are just who you are. And then second, what are my levels of these ideas? My surroundings, my environment, my atmosphere. I'm Dr. Dan Miller. It's great to be with you. I hope you've had a good week, and I look forward to seeing you for episode 63 next week on the 250 River with Dr. Dan. Take care.